When I began to build this app, I knew that in order to create a usable interface, I'd need a larger screen. And due to the interactability of the AR side of the app, a tablet was the most obvious and probably appropriate choice. I also knew that coding the AR side of this app would be more challenging and time-consuming given my experience with using frameworks like AudioKit to handle the audio side of this app. And so therefore I knew that I wanted to use Swift as a programming language, and so therefore that's why I chose the iPad as the desired medium. For the audio system of this app, I referred to AudioKit's open source synthesizer Analog Synth X. This, along with my previous projects using AudioKit, allowed me to get the audio system for this app set up quite quickly. You can see here I've got some files containing the information for the audio system. The most difficult part I found was getting the AR scene to interact with the audio system. I have ended up currently taking the z-axis scale of each individual node and then dividing this by 2 and then passing this value to the corresponding audio pipeline nodes. For example, the amplitude envelope and the detune. To create the interaction, I've used pinch gesture recognizers, as you can see here. With regards to the design of this app, I found it difficult to design the main part of the app. As working with AR, I found it hard to design something for a 3D physical space in a 2D space. For example, I use Sketch normally to prototype designs, and it wasn't quite appropriate. You didn't really get a good sense of how it would feel by just drawing the app on the screen. Because of this, I found myself spending more time writing code and prototyping the AR scene within Xcode. Whilst this was a much more time-consuming way of prototyping, I found it to be very useful as building 3D graphics is not something that I've done much of before. Initially, the app I began prototyping was very different to the one I have at this point. The first prototype design was more of a recreation of a physical synthesizer that would be placed on a surface within the space. However, after having issues with latency when triggering sounds, I felt the design needed to be changed. The next iteration was more similar to the current version. In this design, the keyboard was pre-built into the UI, and the synthesizer controls were represented by vertical blocks mounted onto a horizontal plane. Once I had implemented this code, however, I found that there were a lot of bugs, in particular around the user interaction. This was largely due to the horizontal plane detection, as when a user interacted with the screen using a pinch gesture, if they were not completely on the desired node, then the tracking node would resize, causing the entire display to resize, which wasn't ideal. After trying to fix this, I found myself questioning if this was even the correct way of displaying the controls. It was at this point that I began to think about what makes this app different, not only to standard synthesizer apps, but to also physical synthesizers. The great thing about augmented reality is that you don't need to worry about things like real physics, so why was it that I was so focused on having the controls mounted to a physical object? After thinking about this for some time, I decided that the controls were better suited to be floating in the space, surrounding the user in a sort of 360-degree pattern. Once I had implemented this design, the user interaction issues pretty much all disappeared without many changes being made. That isn't to say that there are no issues now. I'm finding that because of the lack of plane or specific node to lock onto, the scene can end up floating away sometimes and it struggles sometimes to find a fixed location. I have considered using a vertical plane detection node for this, however this again would rely on there being a physical object within the space and would also only work for one set of the control nodes, as the rest would need to be located around the user and not on a vertical plane in front of the user. Moving forward with this app, I'm going to be working on the design of the scene. In particular, I want to create a more cohesive feeling colour scheme for the control blocks, and to begin to implement different textures and some more realistic lighting models. Alongside this, I will be working to secure the scene within the space, as I am not happy with the way that the scene struggles sometimes to find a fixed location. I will of course as well be adding more controls for the audio system into the scene, as the current audio setup allows for far more interaction than I am currently offering, especially as in theory by using AR I'm not limited to an amount of screen space. This project will be ongoing with the intention of a future release on the App Store. However, this will not be until I am fully happy with the previously mentioned bugs are fixed and the scene is just developed a bit